It's quite a pleasure to be here today. I actually got to work with Pat about a year ago at another supply chain conference, and that's how we got to know each other. And I have learned a lot about Texas and our economy, and so I thought what I'd do to kick things off, if you haven't seen this already, you need to pick up this current edition of Time magazine, the title of which is The United States of Texas, Why the Lone Star State is America's Future. And it's not exactly the way I would have written it, but the fundamental messages here as to why our state is performing in this environment that Sandy talked about, why we're performing the way we're performing today, I think are right on. The business environment here, the overall cost of doing business, the cost of living, the quality of life, the transportation infrastructure, the physical, geographic environment that we enjoy all combine to make it a pretty good place to be. So I'm glad to be here, and a lot of the things that Pat said about Alliance and the market wouldn't have happened had it not been for those fundamentals that we all enjoy here in Texas. So it's a great story, and it's a good time to be in North Texas particularly. I thought Pat asked me to talk a little bit about the overall market trends in the real estate sector. Then I'll talk specifically about what's happening at Alliance and how that's a reflection of what I think is going to continue to happen here. And then we'll talk briefly about the Panama Canal and other trends. Also want to point out that one of my longtime business partners, Bill Burton, who's a University of Texas alum, is here with me today. So any hard questions later on, I'll deflect to Bill. I think most of you who are here in this market know what's going on in North Texas. We are on fire. I know David said you had your conference in Houston last week, and you heard about what's going on there. Houston's on fire too, but we are growing at a rapid pace. Some people will tell you that our market here in Dallas-Fort Worth and the surrounding region will grow by 2 million people over the next decade. So imagine 200,000 people a year with their U-Haul trailers loaded up, driving in. That puts a lot of pressure on our infrastructure system and on our real estate product. And so we're beginning to see the impact of that. $15 billion of highway construction around, and for those of you who live here, which I think most of you do, you're living with it every day. And in spite of our transportation infrastructure financing challenges in Austin and at the federal level, we're still figuring out ways to build and expand the critical roadway systems and highway systems in our region. So we're fortunate, as much as we complain, we're fortunate to have the amount of expansion in infrastructure that we do have today. Wanted to touch on what we consider to be kind of four major asset classes that are reflective of what's going on in the market. The first being the multifamily apartment sector. And you can see, I did some year-over-year comparisons. You can see that you read a lot about multifamily, but the actual numbers are not that impressive until you get down to the new deliveries line, and you see we've literally doubled the amount of deliveries from last year to this year. So I think that's reflective of those 200,000 people that are driving U-Haul trailers in here and the job growth that we're having. And we're absorbing at a great rate too. So 60% increase in absorption helps fill up that additional capacity. I just hope we don't get into an overbuilt situation. Most of that product is happening in the urban sectors, the core sectors. And I think that's reflective of another trend of more business and more activity happening in the core city. If you move to the office sector, not quite as impressive as that delivery number and absorption growth as you saw in multifamily, but it's back on its feet, especially in some of the key suburban markets. Las Colinas, the North Dallas Tollway, up in the Frisco area, over in the Fort Worth market, we're seeing some expansion really in all the major sub-markets. So that's a positive sign. Retail's a little flatter. Retail will be typically the last to rebound, and it'll follow the growth. So And in addition to that, we had a lot of excess capacity already in the marketplace, so it takes a while to absorb that. And you can see we didn't absorb a whole lot of it. We actually are showing negative absorption year over year. So I think it'll take some time for that excess capacity to fill up. But in certain high growth markets, we are seeing some new retail being developed. And then the last sector that we focus on, the industrial manufacturing sector, where the core of our business is concentrated, has been incredible. You know, this market from 2008 to 2012, we really didn't build any big box industrial because everything essentially, as we all know, went dormant. But we filled all the excess capacity that was out there, and we are back to a point in time where there's what I consider to be equilibrium. And so you're now beginning to see other developers, including us, build large spec buildings in the 1 million square foot range, and you're seeing a number of build-to-suit projects for large major customers. So that's helping drive that delivery number there of 461%. We basically built nothing last year, and now we're back into a pretty aggressive mode. So that's a positive sign. You can't see these very well. They bled out, but you see those yellow shaded areas around the map. Those are what I consider to be four, not the only four, but four representative, high-growth, newer markets for different reasons. You know, the two on the north end, up in the Frisco and Prosper area north, up around 380, and then McKinney up to Melissa. Those areas are back to booming again, more housing, more retail happening there. Down in the south sector of Dallas, the shaded area there on the south side of I-20 is being driven more by the industrial and the logistics. Pat talked about Port of Houston, the connectivity between 45, between Houston and Dallas along 45, and the connectivity that occurs from a logistics and distribution there is driving a lot of new major industrial developers to go into South Dallas and put up new space. There's probably 5 million square feet of new projects that have been announced over the last 12 months and are under construction. So that's driving. And then our corridor, the one I wanted to focus on, up north of Fort Worth, the Alliance Corridor, one of the fastest growing submarkets in the entire United States. From 2000 to 2010, the city of Fort Worth was the fastest growing city of large cities over 500,000 in the country, and this sector, this corridor where we are, was the fastest growing sector of that market. So a lot going on up there, driven largely by a land availability, diverse housing options, and continuing to expand our infrastructure system. Our program, the 18,000 acres, is everything that's shaded there that you can't see really clearly, but the core of the project is an industrial airport surrounded by intermodal infrastructure and highway infrastructure that basically allowed us to create an inland port concept. And from that, we've been developing industrial programs for a wide variety of users, and those jobs have driven all the other spin-off development, housing, retail, and now office. The cumulative development, Pat touched on some of the statistics. We're very proud of the economic activity. 25 years of development has generated a little over 33 million square feet now of space, and we're just announced 2.5 million square feet earlier this week. So that number will grow. We're up to 35,000 people now coming to work at Alliance every day, and that number is continuing to grow with some of the most recent announcements. I'll walk you through just 2 or 3 of the key sectors of the development. This is a big part of the area. One of our largest areas we call Alliance Gateway. It's right between Alliance Airport and DFW Airport. And this really shows the diversity of what that infrastructure and logistics program can do. There's a wide variety of industries. It's not just distribution and logistics, it's manufacturing. Just to highlight, we just announced and opened a building for Flextronics, which is the contract manufacturer for Moto X, who's building the new Google, who now owns Moto, who's building the new Moto X phone. And they're billing and marketing this project as the first smartphone to be built in the United States. And I think that's reflective of a lot of the mindset of corporate America now. We're now becoming more able to compete in terms of bringing manufacturing back, and so I think you'll begin to see that trend, or at least we hope you do. This slides over about 3 miles to the west to the area around Alliance Airport, and it's going through a little bit of a revolution right now, but we're beginning to see more activity in the aviation sector. And then to the west of the airport, you really see how the integration of infrastructure and transportation infrastructure put together can create some unique opportunities. You see the runway on the right and the big intermodal hub operated by the BNSF on the left, which is like bringing a piece of the ports of LA and Long Beach into North Texas. It really gives us the capability to service the needs of a wide variety of international manufacturers and shippers. And our pride and joy, our most recent project, is the big white building there on the bottom, which is Amazon.com, which we just opened. Bill led that project, and we just opened that building for them at Alliance, 1.1 million square feet, and at the same time built a second building for them near DFW Airport in Coppell of another 1 million feet. I think that's reflective of some of the things you're also going to see here in this market, more e-commerce and internet fulfillment. And then on the mixed-use side, I think this, on a micro level, this is reflective of some of the things I've talked about. This is our Alliance Town Center area, which is retail-driven, 1 million square feet of new retail. So in spite of those flat numbers I showed you earlier, the retail market in these high-growth areas is actually coming back. Office is coming back. We're building, the FAA is building a new regional headquarters, 350,000 feet, and we're building next door to them a 150,000 square foot spec building. Long time since we built a spec office building, so that's a positive sign. And this gives you a little bit of an overview of the diversity. So it's not just concentrated. The growth we're seeing in this market is not just concentrated in one sector or one industry. It's really a very diverse array of users and activities. These are the kind of the roll-up of the last big round of deals that have happened this year. So in the last 9 months, Amazon.com, Walmart.com, 2 e-commerce fulfillment facilities, almost 2 million square feet, and almost 3,000 jobs, just in that sector alone. And then on the manufacturing side, the 2 on the bottom, GE Transportation, who's building their new state-of-the-art locomotive in a new factory at Alliance, is ramping up now to about 3/4 of the rate of production that they're designed for, and they're already up to 500 jobs and 1.3 million square feet. And then Flextronics, I mentioned the Moto X Google phone and what they're doing, and hopefully that's a reflection of more to come on the manufacturing side coming back to the U.S. Just 2 last points. The Panama Canal. Yeah, I just participated in a panel a couple of weeks ago with the director of the Port of Houston and a Panama Canal expert, and you could listen to both of them talk, and I kind of sat off to the side and didn't say much. But the jury, bottom line, the jury's still out on really what the impact of the Panama Canal will have. I think if anyone stands to benefit, as Pat said, the state of Texas stands to benefit greatly. And not just on the import side with new product coming into the Port of Houston and being fed up here into the North Texas market and then out. I think on the export side, there's a huge opportunity, particularly with our energy boom here with the Eagle Ford Shale and the Barnett. There's a huge opportunity to see LNG gas being transloaded out of Houston and shipped back to Asia. And nobody's really talking about that, but I think that's one of the residual benefits of the Panama Canal that will, here in Texas, directly benefit from. They're a year behind, so that impact is going to be delayed a little bit. Then lastly, I've touched on these. The e-commerce craze is really on fire across all markets in the country. We're seeing a lot of these e-retailers now begin to consolidate and build new facilities to service the internet retail business. So I think that's going to happen. I've talked about manufacturing. Two other things for those of us here in Texas. Proposition 6, vote next month, constitutional amendment, very important for the future water infrastructure in the state of Texas. And I think that if that vote goes in a positive way, I think that'll really bode well for us getting ahead, or we're already behind, but getting less behind in getting our water infrastructure upgraded. And then the following November 14, 2014, will be the transportation funding constitutional amendment, which will put $2 billion of rainy day funds into transportation projects for the state. So $2 billion for water, $2 billion for transportation over the next year could really go a long way to helping us get our infrastructure back in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Okay, how many of y'all have been to Half Price Books? All right. Yes, we have more shoppers than UT alums. I like that. Being from TCU, and TCU will win this weekend for all of you Texas X's that are in the room. We just come to Fort Worth, and we'll, you can come to my tailgate, because I always serve purple margaritas, of course. So, but I don't know how many of you have been to Half Price Books, but we started here in Dallas in 1972. We started by a couple of hippies. Yes, there were hippies in Dallas in 72. Most people think we started in Austin, but no, we started here in Dallas. We've been around. 50% of our merchandise is used. We buy back from the public. 50% are overstocks. We have 117 stores. We're in 16 states. We're opening new stores, but Borders closed all their stores a couple of years ago, and we are growing. So our concept does work, and if you haven't been to our store, please come and see our concept. We think that we're going to be the last bookstore standing because of our product mix and our diversity of our merchandise. So, and we keep reinventing ourselves. So I'd like to talk about retail in North Texas. Obviously, this is just a few of Texas-based retailers. Everyone's very familiar with Container Store, JCPenney's, Neiman's, Pier 1 out of Fort Worth. I put Whole Foods because of Austin, and Tuesday Morning, and Sally Beauty is out of Denton, and Michael's and GameStop. I mean, there's really a lot of real good national companies here in Dallas area and the North Texas area, and we're very proud of our retail. Our retail is flat, but we keep reinventing ourselves because we see the future is in retail. New to North Texas, I mean relatively new, Trader Joe's, I'm sure several of y'all been there. Winco I see is coming, Fresh Market's coming, Alamo Draft House is new, Nebraska Furniture Mart is going to be growing, and then In-N-Out, I put that on there. I think In-N-Out came and there were lines around the streets, off the streets, and I know that what's interesting is Whataburger was really worried. Whataburger's out of San Antonio, and they were really worried about it, but Whataburger has held their own, which is, from my standpoint, really good, because we like Texas retail to succeed. Actually Mike did a better job and a more thorough job of explaining the real estate market in North Texas. These are just a few of things I've put together. The market is alive and booming. It is. Obviously, the multifamily properties are popping up everywhere. Everyone knows about what's happening in Fort Worth on 7th Street, uptown. Everyone's kids live in uptown, mine do anyway. The office space is at a premium, and what I love is that most retailers are taking existing centers. There's a bunch of new growth, but we're really reusing a lot of the centers. So I think that's real good and healthy for the whole footprint of the Texas area. So I wanted to kind of talk about retail, because I know that we're talking about 2014, but Christmas is upon us, and we're all very concerned in the retail industry about Christmas, because really what Christmas does, it sets the focus for the first and second quarter, and if we come off a high Christmas, then you usually see a lot of growth in first and second quarter, and if Christmas is flat, then you can we sort of do our temperature gauging based on Christmas, the previous Christmas, for the forecast for 2014. The National Retail Federation, they came out a couple of weeks ago and said the government shutdown is going to hurt Christmas. And it didn't matter if it was only going to be shut down for 5 days or 5 weeks, it would hurt Christmas. It's because it's all about confidence in the minds of the consumer. Everyone understands that and knows that in this room. And so, shoppers plan to spend 2% less, just overall. We just know that going in. The government situation will affect spending. The economy's affecting it. And then what when you have almost 80%, they just plan to spend less. The sad part is when you plan to spend yet less, you usually spend less than you plan to spend. so it's even worse than what we can possibly do. I think the growth's going to be good, but we will see, we're going to see some hesitant in the market. Big deal is that Thanksgiving's late. I don't know how many of you understand that, but Thanksgiving is on the 28th of November. Last year it was on the 23rd of November. That's 6 shopping days less. And people don't start shopping. They say they're going to start buying stuff in July so they can budget out their years. They just don't do it. And they don't start until Black Friday, which is the Friday after Thanksgiving. So it's actually going to, November sales is what you're going to see be affected. And then December will still be strong because everyone's going to be doing a lot of selling, a lot of buying at that time. And I know there's a bunch of men in this room, and y'all do not, you go in and you buy one thing. Well, we women, what we want the women to do is when we come in, I buy a blouse for Aunt Iris. Well, I got it for 20% off. I'm going to buy me a purse. I'm going to buy. So it's really not about what you're buying for your shopping list. It's what you're buying for yourself, what you're buying. You've got to do your house for Thanksgiving. You have to, there's a lot of residual, basically, products that would be pushed through during this season. So it's not just the holiday giving that everyone is concerned about. Buying habits. Obviously, consumer buying habits have completely changed. The internet, Amazon is everyone's major competitor. Half-price books, we did a study a couple of years ago, and our competitor is not Barnes & Noble, it is Amazon. And we are aware of that, everyone's aware of that. All the retailers are concerned about Amazon. That's why we basically went to try to fight the whole tax bill for Amazon because they are eating into everyone's business. Now you can go online and you're going to buy a Calvin Klein shirt or a pair of jeans from Levi's, and you're going to Amazon, and you're not going to Macy's to buy it, you're going to Amazon. And so it's eating everyone's brand, and so everyone's real concerned about it. How many of y'all have participated in showrooming? Does everyone know what that is? It's basically when you walk into a retail store and you either take a picture of it or you hold it and you kind of damage it because you're kind of looking at the product, and then you go home and you order it online. Or you go home and you do a bunch of price comparison online. And that's very, very popular. And 43% of the people have done this and have admitted to it and are going to continue to do it. So there's a lot of things retailers are doing to kind of help this. Basically what you're going to see is a lot more retailers are doing more private labeling. Basically, they're kind of having exclusives on merchandise because I don't want you to go to Amazon and buy a book. I want you to buy it from Half Price Books, and because it's the only place you can get it. And so there's going to be, some of the retailers are working at changing it and trying to keep the people in their store. But this is a huge deal, and especially for higher priced items. Usually, a dollar store or some of the lower price, you don't do as much price comparison. But, basically, consumers are savvy. You are so much more smarter than you were 5 years ago because you have these resources at your fingertips. You can go into any store. You can look online. My family we were overseas this summer, and we were trying to decide. My husband was trying to decide on a briefcase. He goes online, immediately pulls up the Nordstrom's website and Amazon to see how much it is before we bought it overseas, because we're thinking, we can get it cheaper, But we all do it, and we're doing it, and everyone's doing it, and you're doing it quicker, and you're doing it in our space. And so, a lot of countries, a lot of the European countries, they actually don't let you do it. They really, they see you pulling out, taking pictures of it. They come and they kind of, trying to kick you out or trying to do other things. But basically what we're doing is what we have people do is when we see someone's doing that, we go in and we try to sell it. We hand sell it while we can. People, your buying habits have changed. You're using your smart devices, you're using your mobile devices, and you also love to share with us about how much you love and hate our stores. And we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're doing all the social media we can, and we do it 24/7, just like every other retailer. Because if you complain at our stores on a Saturday night, you cannot wait till Monday morning to address it. And so it's just, everything is live and everything's fast. Our mobile devices, and when we say mobile devices, we really mean mobile and tablets in retail. And basically the reason people use our mobile devices, is they want to know where our stores are located. And I think you have to know your audience, because a tablet shopper is different than a smartphone shopper, and how they use the space. And so you'll see a lot of creative retailers going after those two different markets. We're in the book business. We are competing with Amazon. We're competing with the Nook, the Kindle, and iPad. I don't know how many of y'all have e-readers, but there's a whole bunch of you out there. And what we need to do is we need to reinvent ourselves, and that's what all retailers are doing. We understand that Amazon is out there. We understand we've redone our websites. We've working on just kind of rethinking ourselves. Half Price Books. Last June, I met with at one of the book trade shows. We met with Baker Taylor, who does distribution for new goods. And by August, we met with them in June. August, they were in our stores. So we are currently selling New York Times bestsellers. We haven't done that before. We're selling them 20 off and not 50 off. And the reason we're doing that is because we cannot let somebody leave our store without buying something, which is huge. Because once you leave your store and you go online to buy that book that we didn't have, then next time you do it, you're just not even going to our store. You're just going on to online. So we all have to, every retailer understands about keeping you in our store and understands about the importance of giving you everything. We have a lot of different products that we sell. We've changed our product line. We revamped our website, which is huge for us. It's a big financial commitment. We don't have to do the business that Amazon does. We can do a smaller percentage because we are a privately held company. We do $250,000 a year. We're not huge, but we are, we are a little. We don't consider ourselves a major competitor of Amazon, but from the book business, we are, we're holding our own. Customer service is more important than ever. What we plan to do with our website is, right now when you go and order something on Amazon, you can't get a live person to answer that. Well, we plan to have that live person answer all of our concerns. So that's just a quick overview. I know I'm running out of time, but I talk pretty quick. But I love, like she said, I love working in the book business. I love in a business that we have to reinvent ourselves and we have to constantly sell ourselves to a bunch of people. And so part of the reason I'm here is because I want you all to know the Half Price Book story, but I also want you to understand that you can come shop. The closest store is down the road at 5950 at Northwest Highway, and we have money-saving coupons. They're going to be at the table out there, really, but if you want to come and visit our store, that's our flagship store, and actually we are developing the property across the street from the store. So if you drive down to visit the store, you'll see a Starbucks, and you'll see a building, and we're negotiating some big retailers. So that's our next phase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, how many people in here have daughters? Show of hands. Okay. Well, a young man came to a dad and said, "Sir, I'd like your daughter's hand in marriage." And he said, "Well, can I ask you a few questions?" He said, "Surely." He said, "Well, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? What's your career?" He goes, "Sir, I don't know, but God will provide." He said, "Oh, okay. Well, what are you doing now? Where are you working now? What's your job?" He goes, "Sir, I'm unemployed, but I know God will provide." "Well, where exactly are you and my daughter going to live?" And he goes, "Well, sir, I don't really have a place to live, but I know God will provide." So he left. The wife comes in and says, "Well, what did you think?" He said, "Man, I've got good news and I got bad news." I said, "What's the bad news?" He said, "Well, he doesn't know what he wants to do, he doesn't have a job, and he doesn't know where he's going to live." She goes, "Well, my goodness, what's the good news?" "He thinks I'm God." So remember that. But the question there is, who will provide? And so in our story, I ask, who is going to provide the necessary leadership for U.S. manufacturers to stay competitive? I believe everything begins and ends with leadership. It's leadership that must set the way. So turn to your neighbor and say together, "It's up to me." Prices are falling. Have you heard that before? Have you ever asked how, where? Walmart. Of course, Walmart. Walmart's not the problem, but they do drive competition to a new level. We have a world turned upside down. When I think about manufacturing, I think of it in a list of priorities. And the first three should never be sacrificed for the fourth. You have safety and environmental first, quality, service, and then cost. A value consumer is only thinking one priority, cost. The investor is only thinking one priority, ROI. So we, the manufacturer, we have to choose. Will we change our priorities and sacrifice all to the priority of cost and returns, or will we outsource the problem? When the sacrifice is out of sight, it's often out of mind. So with this value focus, we, the American consumer, have given away the cash to our competitors that the U.S. manufacturers could use to make capital investments, train our people, and resulting in the loss of millions of manufacturing jobs in the process. What are the resisting forces? In the next few moments, I'll share with you some information and analysis pulled together by the National Association of Manufacturers. Observations based on data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What are the obstacles and challenges? There's about 4 areas I'll touch on today: competitiveness, innovation, skilled workforce, and regulatory. Dear Lord, regulatory. Competitiveness. Since 2003, the Manufacturing Institute has tracked the excess burden of structural costs of U.S. manufacturers relative to manufacturers in our 9 largest partners. These costs include, now if you're part of this cost or you're involved, you can raise your hand or just keep silent if you'd like. We have corporate tax liability, employee benefits, tort litigation, regulatory compliance, and energy. This disadvantage has existed for about 10 years, but started rising again in 2011. Our costs are 20% higher than our 9 largest competitors, which is up from about 18% in 2008. Without these tax burdens, we would be ahead of 6 of the 9 trading partners. China, Taiwan, and Mexico would still be in a better position. But let's play a game. How many people are proud to be American? Of course, I know we're all going to raise our hand. How many people love their mom? I had breakfast with my mom this morning. But let's say your mom owns a gas station. And every day every once or twice a week, you go to get gas, and she charges you 10 cents more a gallon. Well, you're still going to go with your mom. 50 cents a gallon. Well, you're still going to go, but it's your mom. $1, well, you may cheat a little bit. You may go a couple other places. But if she charges double for gas, guess what? Economics trump love. You're going to go somewhere else. I'd be happy to give you some innovative thinking, but what's the guidelines? Innovation. In America, we're awesome. Our citizens have changed the world through innovation. In fact, many of you right now are probably looking at your smartphone working, and this wouldn't happen a few years ago. But what's changing? In 2011, U.S. inventors were awarded 48% of all U.S. utility patents, compared to 60% in 1980. We're losing the innovation battle. Raise your hand if you're older than you were yesterday. I am. We in the U.S. are poised to enter a period of dramatic aging. People who are 60 and older has increased from 16.8% of the population in 1990 to 18.4% in 2010. And by 2025, 25% of our population will be over 60. That's right, 12 years from now. So Mr. and Mrs. 48-year-old, that's you. And there's a bunch of you. So we're all getting old. And it's true for us in manufacturing. Actually, we're actually older than the non-workforce population. Now, why they split out the farm people, I have no idea. But the average median age is about 40 and a half for a manufacturing worker in 2000. And today, it's 44.6. So we're about 2.1 years older than the average working population. Basically, we need some young people. And they need to be educated and convinced that there are rewards in a manufacturing career. We need more engineers. The latest data shows that only 4.4% of the degrees in the U.S., the first degrees, are engineering. China, of course, China and developing markets, you have a lot more. But even Germany comes in at 12.4, and Japan at 17.1. And adding insult to injury, I apologize to anybody from Canada and the UK, but they're actually higher than us too. We've got to bridge this gap if we want to stay competitive. We were getting old. You should have saw that earlier. Regulatory, my favorite subject. The last 10 years have exploded with new regulatory agencies, each one seeking funds and creating requirements that are not in line with the global norm. Labeling requirements, ingredient restrictions, country-specific licensing, direct investment requirements are driving expansion of product SKUs and local manufacturing requirements. Economies of scales are being impacted. Greater than 50% of the Mary Kay development staff is engaged in monitoring changes and managing the current product portfolio to keep it in compliance. 50% of our people is just staying up with the changes. They drive hard phase-in. They drive excess inventory costs. Now, a manufacturing executive died, and he went to heaven. And when he got there, St. Peter says, I apologize, there's a new policy. Before I can let you in, you have to go to hell, and then you come back and tell me if you really want to go. He's going, well, who wants to go to hell? So he gets on the elevator, goes down, the door's open, he walks out. It is beautiful. His friends are there, beautiful golf. He plays golf, has a great day, great food, gets back on the elevator, goes back up and says, St. Peter, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I want to go to hell. He said, okay, your wish. Gets on, goes back down, the doors open up. It is horrible. There's fire, misery, pain. He's going, he wanders around, he finds Satan. He said, what is going on? He said, oh, no problem. Yesterday you're recruit, today you're staff. So staff has to do something about all this stuff. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we can do to solve this. You can't work 6 times harder. The people in our plant in China make 6 times less than the same person in the manufacturing plant in Dallas. Now their living is about the same. So the actual value of the money in their market is about the same. But it's 6 times less, and you cannot work 6 times harder. We have to lead change to stay competitive, and how do we do that? How do we do that? Automation and lean manufacturing. I'm telling you, that is the answer. When I started working at Mary Kay in '77, sales were about 50 million, and today they're over 3 billion. But I can remember conversations we'd say, when we hit 100 million in sales, we're going to have to buy a new plant. But in reality, the floor space for our packaging and processing is basically the same size it was in 1977. And we're satisfying over 200 million units out of the manufacturing plant in Dallas a year. 60% of that is going to a global market. How do we do that? Richard Rogers, capital investment allowed us to utilize technology investments. In fact, over the last 10 years, our direct labor and overhead has been exactly the same. Despite merit increases and all the changes in health care costs and all that, we've maintained that through automation. Feeding the chickens. We need a skilled workforce. Manufacturing's hard work. It's metric driven. You have to deliver every minute. You have to hit your hourly and daily targets. You have to feed the chickens every day. There's no taking a day off. You've got competing metrics that are constantly tugging at you. Stress, deadlines, HR expectations, legal recommendations, auditors, internal, external, people issues, long hours, high expectations. And I just don't understand why young people don't want to do this job. Have I inspired anybody to change jobs? But we need to realize that this is a perfect job for someone who didn't have the opportunity for education because of a family belief system or a financial constraint. I call them the doers. And there's a lot of them out there waiting to be inspired. We value the doing. But many value the talking. And it requires so much less effort, as I'm demonstrating today. Much less effort than doing. So we find ourselves in a succession planning dilemma. There are 2 significant needs we're trying to address. We're trying to educate the current workforce on lean principles, teaming skills. We're trying to educate our mechanics on automation technologies. Mechanics just don't turn wrenches anymore. You've got to be really, really sharp. Culture is a blessing and a curse. Mary Kay has 50% of their employees for over 10 years of employment. Many of our operation folks have been there for 20 to 40 years. But we have to get better. We have to earn the right to make those products. We don't make those products because it says our name on the brick wall. It says it because we're competitive. Getting better includes lean manufacturing on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic. We're probably at a 3 or 4, but we've got momentum and the impact's being felt. Some of the things that have really helped, the Bill Priest Institute, through a state grant, we provided training for 237 people. Industrial maintenance for 56 people, training with industry for 72 people. This training has helped us bridge the gap because a lot of our folks were just mechanics turning wrenches, and this training is really helping us be competitive. Public-private partnerships like Bill Priest Institute, OSHA VPP program. I'm going to say something good about the government. OSHA VPP program is an awesome program, and it has really helped us become a very safe working environment. Almost at the end. A long engagement. You know, to compete and make investments, you got to have enough demand. And for us to expect automation, for us to invest in automation, we have to have a 2-year payback. In 2000, we implemented inventory strategies that allowed us to use generic packaging. So we would buy the same package, and if we made blue and they bought red, well, I could start making red immediately because I had a generic package, and I could put the shade name on the very, very last step of the process, and that helped us keep the inventories down. And we don't have back orders. We hadn't had a manufacturing back order. We just broke a record of 609 days. And we've been 626 days as of today without a manufacturing back orders. There's really only 3 choices to manage forecast demand. Excess inventories. We turn about 12 financial turns a year. We buy lines when we're at 60% capacity so we can respond quickly, and perfect forecast. So we were doing great, and then the government. 60% of our products that are produced for the global market. Each regulatory body is driving requirements that's making us have more SKUs. These incongruent requirements keep us from being responsive. So we've been working on rapid changeovers, and so we can make that a non-issue. We've had some success, and I think we can have success. Actually, our production costs in Dallas are actually lower than our unit cost in China. So we whooped China, which I'm happy to do, even though I run both plants, but I still like to beat them. The bottom line is we can compete and win if we do these things. We hurt no one. We leave no trace. We're a 0 landfill site, so we're really proud of that. We plan capital to automate to hold costs. We continue technology advancement that promote late-stage customization so we can manage all these regulatory things at the very last moment. And we educate our workforce for waste minimization and asset utilization. Or a miracle could happen. Our government reduces taxes and frees up capital. One global regulatory standard is adopted. Manufacturing becomes a glamour job. Our unfair trade practices are stopped. But in this case, I think we have to stay with what we need to do. Mary Kay had a quote, and I think it's fitting. She talked about competing, but really you compete with yourself. And this begs the question I always have is how can I lead others if I can't lead myself? Thank you.
That help? Yes. My question really is for with the panel in general. With regards to your own business or your own area of expertise, what is your or what are your feelings on the economic impact of Obamacare, and what do you think over the next 2 or 3 years what that impact may be, and just your own perception?
Yuck. I think for us, our CEO says it's not the Cadillac plan. We had the Bentley, and that plan goes away. Looks like it'll be 2016. So that plan won't be available to us because of the tax. Well, if you noticed on December 31st or this year that your insurance cost showed up on your W-2 form. A lot of people didn't pick up on that. So I want everybody to have access to health care, but I don't know that we all need access to insurance. I mean, we pay money at Parkland, so there are ways for people to get health care. I'm socially conservative versus socially not conservative.
Half-price books, we're a family company, and we have 3,000 employees, and we really have great insurance also. But our insurance costs go up, every year, 10 to 20%, and we've had to cut back on some of the services that our employees enjoy, and it's tough. And I don't know who's making the money is what I'm trying to figure out, because our costs are going up, and it's going to continue to go up, and we are very concerned about that, because as a small business, the math just doesn't work, and we hate to deny our employees anything, and they're our bread and butter. And so it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because we're going to have to cut. What's going to happen is people are going to just operate on less people. From a retail standpoint, you're not going to. You know how hard it is finding some of those employees at some of those retail stores. You're going to need to find less. And especially for part-timers, now that there's going to be a whole thing with part-time, we have to have insurance for part-timers, where we used to hire a lot of Christmas help. You'll see a discount. You just won't see that as much.
I'm not sure, excuse me, I'm not sure I can add anything to that. I sit on our executive management committee, and we review and have to approve our health benefits program every year, which we just did recently, and for the third year in a row, we continue to push more cost down to our associates, and we have a very good plan at Hillwood. And I know we'll be able to carry the load, but I think about the ripple effect across particularly smaller companies, and then the ripple effect that has on the economy overall, and the fact that people will just quit hiring because they can't look at those overhead line items increasing anymore. So I don't think it's a good thing. I think the whole healthcare dilemma in this country is a very complex problem, and kind of a little bit like your disability comments.
I'll make two comments that are positive, because it's nice to be. I used to live here in Dallas, and I always like to return to such a liberal place where everyone loves my views. I'll just say this, that I think what's really great is that I think now healthcare is in play. I think that now. I think healthcare is going to look very different 10 years from now, and I don't think it's going to look like the Affordable Care Act looks like right now. But I think that we're finally trying to address certain things. I think that we did send people to Parkland and that type of thing, and we're all paying for that. At the end of the day, we're all paying for that, and that's a very inefficient way to deliver medical care. The other thing I would say that I would argue that everyone should feel positive about, and this is, whether you hate the Affordable Care Act or you love it, and that is, I have seen, in my experience, so many people who say, okay, I'm 34 now, I have this great idea, I want to go start a business, but I can't do it. My family needs health care, and so I've got to stay at a big company. And I think that is going to be whether the Affordable Care Act turns into a disaster or turns out to be great, I think that is the single most positive thing about it, is that I think it's going to enable entrepreneurs to be able to leave their jobs and to go do something else and still have benefits. I think that's something I'm very excited about.
Sandy, we have a question from the audience.
This is a question for the panel. We hear about it often, we see it in economic reports, just about how great Texas is from a business perspective, whether that be the policy out of Austin, just the logistics in terms of where we're at geographically. But perhaps you guys could comment on just the intangible things. What's the why behind the numbers? What is it about doing business in Texas that is just so much better than the rest of the country?
I've got pretty strong feelings about that, because I think about that a lot. I think it's the spirit and the culture that somehow we've been able to maintain throughout the years that originally made this state what it is. That even with a lot of in-migration, I think the core Texas culture, and those of us who grew up here and are multi-generational Texans, present that so strongly that it rubs off on others. And they buy into the culture quickly, and that translates into positives everywhere you go, whether it be business, whether it be community, whether it be civic, whether it be charitable, whether it be social, it stays with us.
From my standpoint, we have stores in 16 states, California being one of the, it is easier to do business in Texas. We can get bigger exterior signage. We don't have, that's just a simple thing, but in California, everything has to be small and very, it's just easier. We have more lawsuits out of the West Coast. We have to have more signage for every product that we put in our store. We have to have disclaimers in certain states that we don't have to have in Texas. It is easier. Our pay, the way we handle our employees, and I think that, it's just the mentality. It's very business friendly. Everything is the tax situation. We don't have state income tax, but it's just easier to do business. And we're in a lot of states that make it real hard for us to do, and we just don't make as much money. And then we, because we have so much more restrictions from doing business.
Yeah, I was going to answer with California. Just look at California, and you know what Texas works.
I've got some questions here that I think, there are a couple of questions about China. One says, the China syndrome, all industries are being felt by or feeling. What strategy should America take in countering China? And another question that says, why 6 times less productive in China? And so,
they're not 6 times less productive. Their pay is 6 times less. And the first part of that question was,
what strategy should America take in countering China?
well, there's 2 things. I saw Walmart came out with this great commercial that said they're going to spend $50 billion over 10 years on U.S. products. I can't remember when Walmart was U.S. products. What we can do is buy America. If you buy America, then you're going to be making American jobs. If you go to Walmart and you buy something made in China, guess where the job's going? In China. So to me, the companies can do a lot of things, but until the consumer changes their perception, the only way you can compete then is just automation and be lean and mean and but you got to have a lot of capital to do that. So if you don't have capital and you're competing against China, you will die.
I'm going to add to that if I can. Sandy, last week when we were in Houston, we had Energy is bringing those jobs back here. And one of the speakers that was on our panel last week, who was in midstream business, said he just reopened a major piece of business in Cleveland with rolled steel. And it's because of the stability of the price of energy.
Let me add just one more thing real quick. The pay for the people that work in the shop in China is growing at about 20% a year. So in about 7 years, the pay that they make will be equivalent to the U.S. So we're going to have, because we have to be there to sell there, we're going to do automation, but it's really going to give an opportunity in the next 7 to 10 years for the price, and then we'll have to worry about China, whoever that is.
And that comment about the natural gas was actually something that was about to be answered with respect to one of the questions that was asked about manufacturing jobs. Kathy, this was I thought this was an interesting question. I was thinking the same thing when you said this. Tell me about the difference between smartphone and tablet shoppers.
Well, a tablet shopper is typically a woman, and she usually shops in the evening and all night long. And she's shopping, and I mean it's she can multitask. So she's watching TV and she's got her iPad and she's just shopping. Where a smartphone, it's really more daytime, and you're really using it to find a store near you. You're finding it, I mean, that's how I do my airplane flights, because it's easy for me to go ahead and, do it. But you can look, but you're not buying, you're not putting it in the shopping cart, and you're not actually selling it. So it's a little different demographic, and but you have to have it. I mean, the mobile devices are sort of what the internet was a few years ago. Everyone didn't know, do I need a website? How much money do I spend on my website? Well, basically, everyone needs a mobile site, and everyone needs, it's a different format. I mean, the tablet is a different format from the smartphone, so you need to have it all.
All right, last question was, do Congress and the President know about the future effect of the unfunded or underfunded liabilities on the U.S. economy? And the answer is absolutely they know. But the reality is that you've got long-term problems, and they're being compensated in the short term, right? You're giving bonuses of being reelected in the short term. No one gets reelected by saying, I'm going to cut Social Security. It's just not really a popular issue. But the reality is that it's going to end up getting cut. And when that happens, we've got I don't remember all the numbers now, but there's a large percentage of Social Security recipients, just as an example, who that is 90% or more of their income, and I think that's close to half of Social Security recipients. So that's 90% of their income. So when you cut that, right now the estimates in 2035 roughly, we're going to end up having enough to pay 2/3 of what you're promised with Social Security. That's going to have a tremendous impact. And so, everyone's aware of that, but, we constantly say we're going to do this in the future, and then when we get there, we change it. And we need to make changes now, and we need to make it such that in order to overturn it, it would take an 80% vote or something like that. Because otherwise, we'll just continue to ignore the problem, and we'll eventually get there. And it's just too late. It's like saying, I'm 59. I think I'm going to start saving for retirement, right? I mean, it just doesn't work. And I think that's where we're headed. And people need notice that, look, you're going to be getting less, so you need to save more. And people won't do that right now.
And on that note, we are going to wrap up. I'm sorry we don't. It's almost 1:30. I am going to keep this on time. First, I am going to thank all of you for joining us. I want to let you know that on texasenterprise.org, the very first part of this, which was Austin, whose CEOs talked about hardware, talked about software, and talked about biotech. That is now posted on texasenterprise.org. So you can watch part 1. Part 2 from Houston, which was energy, big data, and healthcare, will be up next week. And the week after that, this event will also be posted online. And of course, in the next issue of Texas CEO Magazine, you will be able to read all 9 CEOs and 2 UT faculty members from the McCombs School in our wrap-up article. For our sponsors, Pierpont Communication, Corporate Finance Associates, BB&T, I want to thank you all, and Pierpont Communications, I want to thank you all for being here today, and for our speakers, Sandy, Mike, Kathy, and Tony, we thank you all. Have a good rest of the day.